Okay, hey, this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Today's the 27th of June, 2018, and I'm going to have a series of videos here all about what we're doing over the next few days. This is sort of a ritual that we get into every year, and it's cutting hay, all right, or making hay is what they say. They always say, make hay while the sun shines. I was thinking about that this morning. You can't very well do it while it's raining out. You can't do it. So I know a lot of people that listen to this channel probably never even consider where hay comes from, and they think hay, straw, what's the difference? What hay is, as I alluded to before, it's just grass, and there's several different types of grass. Even in this field we have alfalfa. I'm not sure if that's a grass or not, but we have alfalfa, we have orchard grass, we have timothy, and we have something else called bird's foot trefoil that I didn't plant but came up. So you can see the field. This is the field that's up closest to the house. It's about a 10-acre field. There's where the house is up there and the barns and stuff. And so we go through with what's called a hay bine. Sometimes they call it a mower, but I don't want to confuse that with a lawnmower, you know. So let's just call it a hay bine. It has a sickle bar on it, so it's like a knife blade that goes back and forth, and it just makes a cut right at the bottom, right at the base of the hay. Where on a lawnmower you have a blade that goes around, and it might cut it several times and even mulch it up. So I got my best man working with me today, and I got ahead of him a little bit, and here he comes on the hay bine. Okay, so we'll just kind of watch him go by, and I think it's important to show this because that's a 45 horsepower tractor, so it's not like an extremely expensive piece of equipment. Matter of fact, it's a pretty old one, and it's really serviceable. And then the hay bine, that's a 1090 Heston, all right, and I'm not sure exactly of the age of that, and a horsefly, but I think it's 60s, and I'll check into that. I thought it's about, you know, a 65 or so, but I'm not exactly sure. But after the sickle bar cuts it, then there's a set of rollers in there called a conditioner that pulls the stalk in and crushes it, right? And the reason that you want to do that is because we've just mowed this and left it in what's called windrows. These are windrows, they call them. You know, this was all new to me 14 years ago. I had never done this before in my life. Never. I went and I bought equipment, and I found out the hard way how this all works. But I didn't learn a lot of bad habits. I read the manuals, and it helped me to learn how to do this. So it's going to sit here in these windrows. I don't have to yell anymore, do I? Until this is dry enough for us to bale. So on a day like today, we have pretty well full sun, and it's supposed to be in the 80s, and it's fairly dry today. So probably this afternoon, late in the day, probably 4 o'clock-ish, if you call that late, we will come out here and perform the next process. So Keith will go through here and he'll cut this entire field, and then he'll move to the next field. I'm kind of the gopher, and this is important to get him trained on this. Had him a lot of time on that hay bine. We've got 60 acres to cut. So for, you know, guys that are cutting with huge equipment, that's like nothing. But for us, with a 10-foot cut, that's as big as that hay bine is, it takes a few days to cut all of the 60 acres. And it's sort of you have to gauge how much you want to cut, because you want to get it dried and baled before it gets rained on, if you can. I mean, that's the goal. And then in the barn too. But you got to be careful. You can't put it in the barn if it's too wet. So we want the percentage of the moisture way down. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I don't remember. We just get it nice and dry, and then we make bales. We'll let the bales sit out overnight, and then we'll check them to make sure that they're not making any heat. It's not a big problem around here. Back east, it's a huge problem. Barns burn down because they create methane, and if they put wet hay in barns, and then they actually explode, And I've actually, I know that to be fact, not folklore. And then we'll try and get these bales in before they get rained on. All right, but we don't want to cut down too much and then have 6 days of rain where you can't do anything and the hay just gets, destroyed. We've lost fields. I lost a 7-acre field one time where we cut it, it got rained on, we flipped it, almost got it dry, and then it got rained on a couple more times. And that field, we completely lost it. And we wound up just chopping it up and putting it in a pile and trying to feed it to cows, but they weren't very interested in it. Okay, there's a rabbit. So we'll get back out here and we'll show you the process of flipping this over. And once we flipped it, it'll have a chance for the bottom part of the windrow to dry, and then hopefully tomorrow afternoon we can get out here with the baler and start baling this stuff up. We have 3 days, according to the weatherman, that it's going to be clear weather. And in between there, I have Dr. Hines coming on Sunday night, and so we'll have a bunch of people here, or Saturday night at 4 o'clock for a meet and greet with the next governor of the state of Michigan. So you're all welcome to come, and we can even bring you out here and show you how this looks after we've got all the hay off. It's kind of fun. It's kind of neat looking. All right, I'll be back to you. Anyone can farm.